So, Mahlako, very sad story indeed, and there seem to be too many of these incidents happening in the country. What details do you know?
Well, what we understand indeed, the teenager was on his way to school when this happened. Now, as to exactly what happened, we could not really establish that, but it was then alleged by some of the residents that we spoke to in that area, on that street where this happened, that he was discovered by one of a passerby and then saw him lying there on the ground near the stream. It was then where, because he was wearing the school uniform, they were able to immediately identify that he was from Mondeor High. The principal was called. Emergency services got there as well. The principal was, when she told us that when she arrived on the scene, she could feel a pulse and he was breathing, but it would seem that it was then where he was taking his last breath. He unfortunately was declared dead by the time emergency services arrived there. Later on, as we were on the scene, there was a gentleman that had come to say that he had some sort of footage. It was then from that information that the police and the MEC had rushed to go and look at this footage. The MEC, giving us the briefing alongside the police and the school principal, told us that in the footage that was seen to them, they saw 3 learners from a nearby school. As to exactly how they tie into the scene, it will be up to police to have to establish what happened there. But also the MEC emphasizing that he will not have criminals at his school. These type of acts it cannot be that it's business as usual.
In terms of business as usual, what did the principal say about school activities at the school? Are they sessions as normal?
The MEC said he didn't want to disturb learning. You know, they're very particular when it comes to contact time. This is where, you know, education takes place. But we do understand that he did go speak to learners, and they've obviously sent psychologists and social workers to go and counsel children at the school, learners at the school, anybody that perhaps knows Kulani personally or has been a friend. And also, it was also quite interesting that when we drove to the school, we saw some parents coming in to pick up their children because, you know, when the information filtered through social media, we didn't have a name, we didn't know who it was. So a lot of parents concerned driving to the school just to make sure that this was not their child. And a lot of them actually, I think, opting to take their children out of school just for the day. I think just for nerves to come down, and also, you know, just that sigh of relief to say that it unfortunately wasn't you. But it was also, when we were there at the scene, the mother was there, such a distraught lady. It was painful to see her having to identify her son. You know, she was just crying and she just couldn't stop, you know, saying, my only son, my only son. It was really a sad scene to have to witness this morning. Yeah.
I suppose it was difficult because obviously he was attending that particular scene, but obviously the MEC for Education has been really in touch with what's happening at the schools in terms of violence. Any incident, he's on it. I mean, just the other day, there was that young girl who was being beaten up by a bunch of other kids, and he wanted to find out who those children were, and I think they were subsequently dealt with. But what was he saying at a strategic level that needs to happen about school kids getting involved in a level of violence where it results in death?
He spoke about a bill that would be passed, or legislation that would be passed in Gauteng to tighten up measures, though he didn't give specifics and details as to what is this legislation, where exactly are they hoping to tighten up things, but saying that they obviously, the situation warrants a look into to see that what is it that we can do to try and show people that this is it's unacceptable. You know, we cannot be breeding a violent society, especially children at such a young age, to behave in such a manner. But he was also quite clear to emphasize that he is not saying that these 3 learners are, you know, he's not finding them guilty, but that is up to the police to go back and do their job and take that footage and compile it. Also just trying to caution us, to err on the side of caution, to say that we cannot, you know, become policemen and women and say they were indeed involved, but saying that it was quite disturbing to see 3 learners of a nearby school, obviously also a custodian of that school.
Mahlako, we're going to leave it there. Thanks very much for that report. My colleague Mahlako Komane just giving us that report on the school killing.